Welcome to the Spunky Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Psychic Medium Cari Mugz. This is where we learn all things spirit, everything from spiritual gifts, awakenings, ghosts, aliens, and starseeds. Nothing is untouchable, but always fun and spunky. I am honored to be on this spiritual journey with you, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Spunky Spirit. I am Cari Mugz, and this week we are going to talk about the dimensions. It's not going to be very long because I don't know a lot. I know some. I'm just learning about them and they're fascinating to me. So I kind of want to talk about them a little bit, just like a little entryway, because I think I'm actually going to I'm going to do a class on the dimensions, or just at least the fourth dimension, because the fourth dimension is way cool. I just taught an Akashic Records class a couple of weeks ago, and it was full of fourth dimension stuff, and we just barely scratched the surface. So this week we're going to talk about the dimensions, or the universes, or not the universes, but the parallels, and so the frequency. Now you've heard of people talking about the different levels of frequency or the different dimensions, and so it's kind of cool because we do have a lot of different dimensions. I know that some people say we have 10, some people say we have 12. There could be more than that. And we on Earth are in the third dimension. This is a very dense dimension. It's very, I'm not even, the first and second one, I didn't really read a lot on that, but I just feel like that's like the Earth's, like, part in science, it's like the axis, the X, the Y, and the X axis on Earth, but I'm not really sure spiritually. I just know it's like lower, it's a little lower dense. I think it's like just the beginning of creation, or I'm not really sure, so don't quote me on that. I just have been going from the 3 up. So the third dimension is Earth, and that's where we're at now. And this is a really dense dimension, and it is it's the only, our whole planet is kind of been on this 3-dimensional, and it's the frequency is lower, that it's the place where the veils kind of shut, and we kind of don't see or aware of what's going on spiritually, or we don't see the higher frequencies, or we're just kind of like in this monotone like state the whole time. And just know too, when I talk about these dimensions, you can go in and out of some of these dimensions. You're not always like in the third dimension all the time, and then you get raised to the fourth, and then the raised to the fifth, and you can go in and out of these dimensions. And also too, I know a lot of people think of the dimensions as like linear planes, like just kind of planes, like horizontal planes, like third, fourth, higher. But honestly, they're more like a Russian doll. You know, the Russian dolls where you have the little tiny soul in the middle, and then each piece gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Those are the dimensions. The dimensions are kind of actually surrounding you, the energy that's around you. And so when people talk about, all of you probably heard about the fifth dimension and how Earth is being in the fifth dimension, or raising to the fifth dimension. This is what they're talking about, that people are starting to wake up and starting to, like, their vibrations starting to raise. They're starting to be more aware of the fifth dimension. The Akashic Records are held in the fifth dimension. And if you took my Akashic Records class, this little podcast is probably going to be a repeat for you. I'm not talking about the whole class in this, but I'm going to talk about the fourth dimension. And then the dimensions higher. Some people say that, like, in these dimensions are like, I read a book one time that said in those dimensions are like the dragons are in one of these dimensions, and different types of, like, the fae are in these different dimensions. But I also know that these entities, or unicorns, mystical creatures, these are in that dimension. And I feel like that heaven is either in the highest fourth or somewhere in the fifth dimension. I know it's in there somewhere, but the fourth dimension is interesting because it's like, because you think of these little parallel, and I could be wrong on some of this stuff too, because I'm just barely learning it. So I reserve the right to change my mind at any time, because this can always change. But the fourth dimension is full of different frequencies inside. Frequencies inside frequencies inside frequencies inside frequencies. And a lot of this is what I have been taught, or some of it has been what I've been downloading, or some of it is what I've learned myself in the Akashic Records. But I would say a lot of it is what I've kind of been taught to. I think my Akashic Records
teacher is awesome. Her name is Susie. If you want more information, maybe I'll put her information down at the bottom. She has loads of information on the fourth dimension. In fact, she's like running a whole series on it, and I am going to teach some of the stuff that I learned from that, and then I'm downloading from the Akashic Records in that class. That class will probably be in January. It'll be a Dimensions class, because my Akashic Records class was, people loved it. It was so awesome, and we learned so much about all the different dimensions. So the fourth dimension is it's the craziest dimension. It's where the astral realm is. So if you ever astral travel, it's where the dream state is. So if you ever, when you're dreaming, it's where the lucid dreaming state is. It's when you're in that, when you're in that half asleep, half awake time. That's when you're in the fourth dimension. That's when you're in the astral realm. That's when spirits have the easiest time talking to you. And the fourth dimension has a lower and a higher. And most religions, the heaven and hell that they speak about, are based on this fourth dimension, this astral realm, because there's a higher and then there's a lower of the astral realm. And so some of the lower part of the fourth dimension is where some of the scary frequencies hang out. Some of the ones that people are scared to talk about, some of that stuff, that's where they kind of reside. So and of course, we don't know this for sure, right? Like, this is just what people have been downloading themselves, or like, it's not science. It's just spiritual stuff that some people have recognized when they meditate or have been told by other spiritual beings. So again, this can change, but just this is kind of what I've been told, or what I've learned, of what I've picked up. And the bottom of the fourth dimension would be considered the hell that people think. And that's where the lower frequencies reside. That's where the lower energies reside. And then you kind of go up into the higher fourth dimension, which is where a lot of people would say heaven resided. And so that's where a lot of religions have heaven and hell. Some religions even have like different levels that they think you're going to go to. And this is all based on the fourth dimension. The fifth dimension is a little bit higher than that. It is got the Akashic Records. I feel like this is where a lot of good things, like nothing unclean can go past the fourth, up the higher, can go into the fifth dimension. And I feel like that's where a lot of like angels, master teachers are, and some of them even go up higher levels. Like, I think I read one time, and I'm not sure about this either, but Christ was up in the highest, like in the 9th or the 10th, and I think there's like 12. So they come down and help, all of the master guides or the master teachers are up there in the higher levels too. I don't know that much about the 5th and the 6th level or anything higher than that. I just know that our goal is to try and always raise our frequency, raise our vibration, so we can get into those higher frequencies later. I do know that on the other side, it is the lower or into the fifth dimension when you get into heaven and things like that. But you do have to go through the fourth dimension to get there. That's why most of the time ancestors come to get you when you transition, because they don't want you to go through the fourth unprotected or unguided. So there's always spirits or your guides or ancestors coming to get you when you transition from this earth life to the next. And there can be people that are in 3rd, 4th, 5th level. So that's why when I do all different times. So a lot of people, if anybody tells you they're always in the 5th, who knows? They might be, I don't know. But most of the time we're going in and out of in between the 3rd and the 5th. Most of the time, all of us are. We're like expanding and we're growing. But to reach those levels, you have to meditate, be in hypnosis, or transition over. You have to be in a spiritual state. You have to have, and you kind of reach those through your chakras. That's why chakras are so important, because you don't have to have completely cleansed chakras or be perfect, but you kind of transmute or during meditation and use those chakras to evolve into those levels. That's why some religions have like the obedience of eat cleansed things, vegan things, no meat, no alcohol, things like that, because they feel like that when you have to transform it. If that's true or not, I don't know. I know I don't function very well without protein or without some sort of meat sometimes. So to me, that's not what resonates with me. But everybody's different, and everybody has a different frequency, and everybody comes from different places. So you do what, resonates with you and what you feel is your healthiest or where you need to be. Now, do you have to be at your healthiest state to get into some of these levels? No, because your soul or your higher self is actually going into those. It would help if your body was in tune a little bit more so you could help. That would help. But honestly, your spirit rises in those, and your spirit and your soul rise into those frequencies, or expand into those frequencies, I should say, like the Russian doll. So that is when there are lots of different things about. I wouldn't mess with the astral realm unless you knew what you were doing. So I wouldn't meditation. You can raise into that, but always go into meditation protected. I wouldn't try and astral travel unless you knew what you were doing and you're protected. I would, lucid dreaming, it's cool. And it's lucid dreaming is when you can kind of control your dreams, and that's awesome. But also, again, since you can control your dreams, you can be like, okay, I'm protected, or call your guides to be with you while you're lucid dreaming. But all plant medicine or kind of hallucinogen medicines, they're going to be all fourth dimension. So when you do have, ayahuasca trips or shroom trips, all of that happens in the fourth dimension. That's why it's so important for you. Now, your guides can come and direct you, because your guides can come into the fourth dimension. Your ancestors can come into the fourth dimension. They kind of know what they're doing. But that's like when I do readings, we are like I'm at this level, they're at this level, we meet halfway. We're meeting in the higher fourth dimension. Does that make sense? That's why I kind of have to always I have to practice meditating all the time, because I have to be at that level that we can meet halfway. If I'm sick or if something's not right and I can't get there, they can go a little bit in, but they don't like to go into the lower frequency of the fourth dimension. So we meet there. That's where we meet. So, the plant medicine, that's what I was talking about. That's where a lot of people, so when you do plant medicine, or you do have these ayahuasca trips, or these or these shroom incidences, or these hallucinogens, and sometimes you can have bad trips and sometimes you can have good. And that's because wherever you're at, what your ever intention is, it could be, if you're having a bad trip, then you're in the lower fourth dimension. And if you're having a good one or a very, very high spiritual one, it's in the higher fourth dimension. And so that's kind of how it works. Now, I'm not saying, because nightmares when you're sleeping, that's in the lower frequency. That's the lower fourth dimension. That doesn't mean that that's where you're at. It doesn't mean that you're a lower frequency person. It just means that somebody in that fourth realm, it just kind of came down, or that fourth got access. Or does that make sense? So it's not that you are a bad person. And because if you're listening to this, you most likely have been you're awakened, you know what's going on around you, you're spiritually growing, and so you're going in between the third and the fifth dimension all the time. And so it's not something, though, that you can, a lot of people think that they can be in fifth dimension all the time, and maybe they can. I can't speak for everybody, but I feel most in general, everybody goes in and out of third and fifth all the time. And meditation is fourth dimension. Anytime you meditate, it's kind of, and I would like to say too, so alcohol is a lower frequency in the fourth dimension. So I know some like ayahuasca and things like that can put you in a higher fifth dimension depending on your intention or what you want, but alcohol kind of stays at a lower frequency in the fourth dimension. It doesn't really rise, but you can feel more some people feel like they can be more connected when they're drinking or when they have a little bit of buzz, and it's because they're in the fourth dimension. That's where the alcohol frequency takes you, but not always. It's pretty much usually in the lower fourth dimension. That's why alcohol is called spirits, because it keeps you there. If you guys have anything to add to this or know about this, I would love to hear it, because I am not a know-it-all. I'm just telling you what I'm learning, and I think it's fascinating, and so I want to share it because I think it's great and I think it's fun. So fourth dimension stuff, that's kind of the thing that's crazy about the fourth dimension is there's layers, so many layers, and then there's layers in layers. There's so many different layers. The fourth dimension is you could do, I think I'm going to do a whole class about it in January, because I think it's so fascinating. It's awesome. And it's just the coolest thing, like your soul, your higher self. Your higher self is above the fourth dimension. So when people say you need to consult your higher self or you need to talk to your ancestors, they are above the fourth dimension. They're above the fourth frequency, the fourth dimension. But and your soul is too, your higher self is. But sometimes you have to like get sometimes soul fractures. If you ever heard me talk about soul fractures, those are held in the fourth dimension. Just things that, all these different things that people are experiencing spiritually on this earth, most of that is held in the fourth dimension. The Akashic records are in the fifth dimension. And it's kind of cool because I will probably do a podcast about the entities that kind of entertain the lower fourth dimension, because I'm learning it. And I think it's interesting because I think that, a lot of mediums teach that some of the things that you see or some of the lower frequencies that you see are not separate entities of yourself. They teach that it's like your own feelings or your own demons or your own emotions coming out and giving that energy life. And I gotta feel like that could be true. Some of that's true. But I feel like a lot of it is that we have these separate entities, that they're separate inside themselves, and they kind of travel through the fourth dimension, and they kind of bug us sometimes, and they like to be tricksters, and they like to play, and they like to mess with us. And so yeah, this is kind of a shorter podcast just because that's about all I know about the fourth dimension. And I just really it's kind of a setup because I'm going to actually see if there's interest in this, because I think too, I did a Bigfoot episode. I get all excited. I did a Bigfoot episode, and I think that I kind of feel like me and my husband talked about, the fourth dimension and whether or not we feel like there's vortexes, or if I kind of think that Bigfoot's a fourth dimension. I do. And like that's where, and some of these UFO people or aliens, some of them can be third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension like us, but some of them can be way higher dimension, like seventh or eighth or in the ninth, and they are very more they're just more accelerated or more at peace or spiritual, and they can come down and be part of this too if they, I don't know. It's so crazy because it's so fascinating to me, and I want to know how it works, and I'm just gonna like investigate it more and look into it more. And so I just think the dimensions are crazy. When I learned about it and talked about it and taught the Akashic Records class, this was a big portion of the Akashic Record class. And I am going to have an Akashic Records. I am going to start reading Akashic Records in January, but I'm going to have my friend who does Akashic Record readings. I'm going to have a podcast interview with her. So it'll be interesting to see what she thinks about the fourth dimension and what she thinks about these entities. I'll get with her, and we'll see if we can get her on to talk about maybe this fourth dimension and the Akashic Records. But I just feel like it's so interesting, and I am going to bring you more information about the dimensions. I'm going to look into, and maybe I'll do like a series where we talk about the fourth dimension. Well, would be this one. The next one would be the fifth dimension, and then the sixth dimension, and do a little bit of a dimension series, because I do know that some of the higher dimensions hold like the mystical creatures that we talk about, and I just think it's fascinating. So that's my take, or that's what I've learned, or that's my downloads on the fourth dimension. And if you want to know more about the dimensions, like DM me, let me know, because I'm going to start doing more. If you do like it and it's something that you want to listen to, I definitely will do it for you. Also too, if you are listening to this and this has helped you, or you love these, please subscribe to my YouTube, subscribe to my Spreaker, whatever, to this podcast, to Apple, whatever you're on, because that helps me and that gives me more reach to more people, which can help more people. And I love that. So, I love you guys so much. I just spent like time in North Carolina, which was great. And I'll probably do a podcast on that, on how it went. But I love you guys so much. And I just want you to remember that I'm so grateful for you, and you have all of everything you need already inside you. And I will talk to you guys next week.